Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our evening edition of Big Brother 22 All-Stars Live Feed Spoilers. We are now just diving head first into the aftermath of this veto ceremony, where it felt like for about 2 hours after it, the host guests were basically all like all over the place. There's the simulation for that. They've slowed down a little bit. I think they got out all that energy, and now they're just like, eh. So we got a lot to get into here.
Yeah, now they just have to figure out what they're actually gonna do.
Yeah, and there's some questionable thinking, I think, on the part of some people. I kind of understand where some of it's coming from, but before we get into any of it here, if you guys like this video, give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell for more updates all season long, and support us further. Check those links to our Patreon of a number of benefits there, and also our store where you can get a shirt kind of like this one.
Okay, so Devon did use her veto. We said that a bit earlier in our last update, but just for anybody who'd missed that one, Devon did use her veto, and Ian is now on the block. And while it really sucks, he's not panicking about it yet. He's anxious about it, but he's not panicking. And I think a lot of it is that there's a lot of people that are going up to him and trying to be like, don't worry, everything's gonna be okay, you're not the target kind of thing. But he totally is.
And I want to believe that the inside of Ian's mind is different than what he's showing outside. I have no real evidence to really demonstrate this yet, but Ian's got to kind of realize because back in Big Brother 14, I don't think he was really in direct danger of going after the veto until pretty late in the game, and it wasn't like he was getting an abundance of conversations before the veto ceremony where people were talking to him about going up on the block. So I hope on some level in his head, he's really just, rocking back and forth on the hammock, focusing in, formulating a plan. Come on, Ian.
Yeah, I mean, it's small, but he does have at least Nicole in his corner, sort of. She really doesn't want him to go, and she has tried to talk a little bit with Cody about it, but Cody's not really listening. He wants Tyler to stay, and in the back of his mind, I'm actually wondering if he's kind of like, why are you bringing this to me? Like, Tyler is part of everything that we are working with together in this blob alliance. Like, I don't get it. So she's kind of got some feelers out there. The problem is that she's just going to the wrong people with it.
She's going to the wrong people. And I don't think she's desperate enough. I think she has had a particularly bad week because losing a perfectly great side alliance, I think, to her is something that she valued. I don't necessarily think Ian was someone she wanted to go to the final two with for sure, but I do think she wanted Ian as far in the game as possible, not first person on the jury. I don't think this is particularly acceptable to her.
No. And there was another really interesting conversation too between Tyler and Enzo where they were kind of talking about the idea that Tyler's just like, man, if Danny really wanted me to go, she should have put you up with me, which is something that we had talked about a few videos ago, and Enzo was just like, yep.
Yeah, nobody was gonna get rid of Enzo. Like,
no.
Enzo is he's too well liked. Everyone loves the meow meow. This is why he's probably winning at the end of this season.
Yes, and that's where we get back to kind of just the messiness of Danny's HOH and her indecision that has caused a lot of these problems. Because why put Tyler up if you're not really committed to taking the shot? It feels like she was there and then she backed off of it because I think she knew that Ian is not the person that you put up to get out Tyler. It just isn't the way to go about it. So it was like she started, but then she just, her indecision has made things quite messy this week for her.
It's really bad. Like, I think this is a very bad HOH for her, because not only is Tyler staying, probably, and Tyler is certainly going to look at her as a target moving forward, but she's also probably going to lose someone who didn't seem to really have her on his radar all that much at all, because he was close to Nicole, and Nicole is close to Danny. Ian was aware of that. I think if we're not at the point yet where we need to fully eulogize Ian Terry 2.0 as a player, but I think his biggest mistakes this season are he really relied too much on his relationship with Nicole, and I think he thought that would help him. And I think his sort of one of his backup plans was Kaser, who I think he wanted to work with just because he liked Kaser, and Kaser was smart, and he didn't put enough time, as much as I love Ian, into the Davons of the world, into the Kevins of the world. He needed to do more with people that were sort of separate from the, quote unquote core group.
And it's very strange ideas going on right now with sort of the underdogs and Davon and Kevin and them, because they are leaning towards keeping Tyler, and they seem to think that they are able to kind of bring him in, and I just don't understand what's going on with this read. I thought it would be a no-brainer for them to want to bring in Ian.
Let's talk about Kevin here for a moment, because I get Davon wanting to use the veto on Kevin. She perceives him to be a close ally,
Yep.
all of that. She wants to make a move in the game.
Yep.
Are we sure Kevin is a good ally? Like, this is the thing. I think Kevin, he's a little bit shifty. We all know this. Also, his reads this season, he'll have like one really good one, and I'll start to get back on board the Kevin train, and I'll be like, all right, Kevin, we're chugging along here, and then he will completely go off the rails, and some of his reads are just not good at all.
Yeah, I don't know why they feel that Tyler's the right person, especially with everything that's happened between Tyler and Davon last week, a little bit this week. Like, they're not really on the greatest footing with everything. So I just don't know where this is coming from. It feels kind of strange. And I do get that they haven't really been talking a lot with Ian, but then why not take this time right now to talk with Ian? Because you kind of know where Tyler is in some ways, at least Davon does. So at that point, open the other door. What's behind door number 2? It's Ian. So talk to him.
I would love to work with Ian. Ian's fairly loyal. He has some information about the game. He can be useful. I'm hoping Ian is thinking of something. But David, okay, it's time for another David, because here we go, David.
All right, here we go.
Down the same road we've been down many times, where David, a lot of his thinking, because let's remind everyone out there that David, within his head, he believes that the dominant people in the game are Danny and Cody, which, all right, that one's good, David. You're doing okay so far.
Yep.
And then Nicole and Ian. He thinks that Ian is a part of this core, and he does not seem to believe that Tyler is a part of the core really at all. And don't make me honk the clown car again, David. We've been trying to say you've been doing better.
Okay, listen, I can kind of a little bit understand why David is maybe thinking this. And the only way that I can kind of sort of justify it is that he thought, and he was working with Tyler for a little while there. Yeah. Tyler didn't really bring him in with the rest of the alliance. This was something that was kind of just going on with the two of them. And so at that point, maybe he thinks Tyler is kind of on his own, or just, floating around with some other people or whatever, and he's not part of it. And then the idea would be, put up Ian. He's part of this main alliance. So try to get out poor Tyler's by himself and just hang it out with David. Everybody loves Ian. Who would ever vote him out? That sort of thing. So that's the only way I've been able to thread this together, David.
You have ventured further within David's mind than I have ever been bold enough to go. I will say that. But the thing I think that is just so, just ironically hilarious about all this, not hilarious in a good way, mind you, because the thought of Ian leaving makes me very sad, is that I think David's mind is sort of like, oh, they think that Tyler's potentially going to leave the game. Well, I'm going to show them. We're going to find a way to maybe talk about keeping Tyler ourselves.
Yeah, this is the season of really bad reads.
It's one of those sort of things where you really want to root for the underdogs. It's human nature to do this. It's like, and I love Davon, and I love Ian, and I do like David, even if we poke fun of David here and there. It's just, The problem is that if your underdogs don't have an actual sort of understanding as to the dominant numbers in the game, you then get into Faute territory from Big Brother 20 and you just screw up each other because there still doesn't seem to be enough of awareness that Tyler and Christmas are close. Christmas is never going to do anything that is going to involve getting away from the Blob Alliance. She has, like, glued herself to that blob like nobody's business.
It's just very weird that that other side of the house hasn't noticed that there's, like, this whole group of people that have not gone on the block at all this season, and that the same sort of, this group keeps winning, and that every person that's been the HOH, there is a certain group of people that are not seeing the block. Yep. Yes, Christmas put herself up as sort of the volunteer or whatever, and that's why Christmas, on top of her safety suite and win and picking Ian as the +1, all of that, she's actually been able to sort of stay off that radar. But everybody else that's been HOH, and none of those people are going up at all, why hasn't anybody noticed that?
This is where we are, everyone, and I'm gonna take the page from you here and grab the hard hat and put it on. Here is what we need, everyone. If you want to see some chaos, Nicole, you have to rely on Nicole.
Oh my goodness.
Nicole needs to go and blow up the committee to some of the people outside the committee and make them realize.
Let me get you here this fan fiction pen.
Okay, there we go.
Take the hard hat back.
See,
because that's not happening.
Well, Nicole, I will listen to your and Victor's podcast if you. Okay, I probably won't, but I will.
That is bold.
I will contemplate. No, it's just.
I will contemplate.
Yeah, this is a really good promise.
This is not going
no,
well.
There may be other things that can happen where Ian could potentially stay, but it is at a point where they need to realize that there isn't that much of a chance that Tyler's going to flip over. They're banking way too much on this.
The thing that Nicole and Danny both really need to sort of understand, because everybody knows that they are close and they are a duo, and Danny putting up Tyler basically means that Nicole put up Tyler. It's still in that same realm.
Yeah.
They need to get Tyler out. This is in their best interest, because if they don't and Tyler wins, he is probably going to throw them both up, or at the very least Danny. And then Nicole is going to lose another ally here. So they need to find a way to make Ian stay. And I think that they can. There is enough time. It's just, are they really motivated enough? And because Danny threw up Tyler and then put up Ian, I just don't think her motivation is there. I think she was ready to take that shot and then chickened out.
She's playing Big Brother scared, and I think it's All-Stars. You're in jury. I think you have to try to be bold to a certain extent. And I mean, Davon was bold. I mean, this move, saving Kevin, it could blow up dramatically in her face because Nicole seems more inclined to put her on the block now right away than she used to be. But it was a bold move. And if Nicole and Danny want to try to have a better chance, the boys are just winning out this week. I mean, it's a great week for Cody. This is a good week for Enzo. Provided Tyler stays, of course, it's not a bad week for Tyler. He gets to survive being on the block. They've just put themselves in this really tricky situation, especially now because you've got Enzo sort of talking about how he wants to continue to try to hang out with Davon and Kevin to sort of confuse them further about where the numbers really lie. Enzo's just gotten more of sort of the go-ahead to do his Enzo magic. Yo, that's it. I'm working with you, guy. I'm going to keep talking with you. Yo, F-bomb, that's it.
Yeah, and it's a great move for Enzo. Enzo is winning this game. He really is. He comes across as really genuine. We've sort of talked about that. Enzo has his own little bit of a way of working people over. So this is where his strength is. So to go and speak to Davon and try to, confuse Kevin and make them feel like they're A-okay with him, it's a brilliant move, especially if he can continue that up as they're walking out the door.
I gotta say, I root a lot for underdogs because I want chaos in this season. But if Enzo wins, I'm gonna be pretty satisfied, honestly. Like, I really think he's played an excellent social game. He's won some competitions. No one still recognizes that he is like the big glaring target who's gonna get all of these jury votes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It is crazy to me that things have kind of worked out that way. But we've got a lot of time left. I know there's a show tomorrow night. That does not mean though that the elimination, the eviction's being moved up. It's still on Thursday.
Yeah.
Moves can happen, things can change. We need some people to start sort of realizing the real shape of the house. You know, Nicole, if you're worried about, optics and what the public may think, this is your chance.
I think that she's going to probably make a move to try to keep in. If I have to make a prediction, I just think that she's going to continue to kind of do it the way she's doing it, which is talking to her own alliance, and they are the wrong people. I think she could get away with this by sort of talking to people on the outskirts and then her own vote, and it could come down to Danny having to break that tie, but she could just get one more person. I mean, she'd be able to do this. There is time.
There is time. It's gonna take effort, it's gonna take risk, but winning Big Brother is not supposed to be easy, and I wish these blob people would remember this. But what do you think Ian can do to stay beyond just hoping that Nicole swoops in and does something? I know he's more than capable. Let us know in the comments, and if you do like this video, give us a like, subscribe, support us further, check those links to the store, our Patreon, and we'll see you here next time.